What is up, everybody? Welcome back. It is me, of course, Sugi JRPG here, coming back from a hiatus once again. At last, I'm here now, and today I'm gonna be reviewing Final Fantasy 15 Windows Edition. And obviously, I have reviewed the game already once before on my channel when I played it through on PS4, and there's no point redoing that review. So instead, I will be reviewing all of these new patches that have been added post-release of the game, and also the DLCs and the unique features of the Windows Edition that are exclusive to PC. So let's get started with the PC features, so to speak, the two things that make it fundamentally different from the Xbox One and PS4. So obviously there are a lot of graphical improvements, such as HDR10, higher FPS. If you remember, the PS4 version was locked into like 35 FPS or something like that, and I think you can get like 50 FPS with the PlayStation 4 Pro. So that experience is fundamentally different. Obviously you can get 4K, you can do a lot of customization on the hair dynamics and everything. There's a lot more detail that you can, really boost out of your PC while playing this game. But obviously it is also a very intensive game in a lot of ways. I wouldn't say that it's the most optimized game out there, to be honest. And also, the thing about the Windows Edition is every time you load a save or start a new game, there will be a huge loading screen, because it will essentially load the whole map all together for a one go. And this is something obviously that the PS4 and the other versions didn't do. And this can actually take quite long, even if you have SSD. It can even take 5 to 10 minutes depending on how good your PC is to actually do the initial load for the game. And this can be kind of annoying for certain people, especially if for some reason you're using if you're loading another game, or there's a bug or glitch in your save and you have to load the game again, because the game has crashed on me a couple of times. Actually, through my playthrough, it crashed 2 times, and it was really painful because I had to replay a bunch of stuff again. So always save when it's possible, guys, just so you know. And the other thing is obviously the mod support, which allows people to do content for the game. And most of that content is like 99% new skins. People have imported from, characters from different JRPGs and, Final Fantasy games, and essentially allows you to change the main party, Noctis and everybody else, or even another character like the main villain Arden, to something else, okay? So, and that is a really nice. I'm not really a mod guy. I don't really use that much mods in a game like this especially. So it's not a really thing for me, but people can have really fun with it, and they can fulfill their fantasy experience better if they have a certain type of skin or costume for a certain character. And those are pretty much the biggest features that are exclusive to the Windows version. So it makes it superior in a way to the Xbox One and PS4. And obviously the Windows Edition comes along with all of these bonus items, like you start out with one of the higher end fishing gear inside the game. The holiday bag and the booster bags also come along with the thing. So you get a bunch of these like accessory items which will give you like extra AP when grinding out. So you can get a lot more AP if you wear them throughout the second playthrough like I did. So you can farm AP a lot faster in the Windows Edition. And I think those are also included on the King's Edition, which is the equivalent of Windows Edition without the graphical stuff and the mods on PS4 and Xbox One. And let's move into some of the other minor details that have been added through, post-release, because I obviously played the game through and I didn't touch any of the DLC or the new features. I thought that I will play the game once again, maybe in the future, when all of these patches have been added up. So there are obviously been a couple of these crossover and promotional events. There's one that allows you to get actually a new summon. And then there's a first-person mode. That's something also exclusive to the Windows Edition. I don't see why people would like to play on the first-person mode, to be honest. I mean, yes, there are some tricky spots where the camera kind of fucks up, but I think those have been mostly tweaked and fixed. at least a way I remember playing on PS4 versus now playing on Windows, I definitely felt that the Windows edition had a lot less more of these camera problems. Also, the very final stage of the Insomnia City ruins have been expanded. There are a couple of new bosses also added to the game, which kind of increase things. And then we have a new car, which is essentially the monster truck of the Regalia, which allows you to essentially just drive around everywhere with this car. It's kind of like a chocobo. It, burns out gas pretty intensively, but you can get the upgrade that removes gas altogether. And this is, I didn't really use it, but it comes along with a lot of these racing quests, so I guess it's a lot of new content. And obviously we have to acknowledge that there are literally over 100 hours of content in this game. I mean, it's pretty immense in terms of any Final Fantasy game there is. It's like very large. And let's go into a bit of the DLCs, because I never talked about them on the channel. So we have episode Gladio, Prompto, and Ignis included on this one. I believe Arden, episode Arden, which is coming on March, will be also free for the Windows edition. That's my assumption. I hope it is. I don't really like the idea that I would have to pay for it, especially because all of these DLCs are around like hour and a half max as a gameplay, so they're not very long. Prompto is probably the largest one out of the three because it allows a bit of exploration in a zone. But how would I review these episodes, and how do they play through the story? So the first one I played, which is right in the chronological order, is first Gladio, then Ignis, and then Prompto. So Gladio's story is really irrelevant, but it offers a new playstyle. So there is this sort of Dark Souls type of a feel to it, and all of these three have their different kind of game mechanics, so to speak. I mean, Prompto is a third-person shooter, and Ignis's gameplay is kind of akin to Noct's, but somewhat different still. And Gladio's story, I mean, while I enjoyed the level design and everything around it, it was really irrelevant to the story. It was a bit of a bit of a boost to the character's mentality, but overall really irrelevant to the whole story. And it's a kind of like a story you didn't really need to tell. And yes, Core was also on it, which could have been played into a much more interesting role. He could have died in that episode. He didn't. It's a really weird character that didn't really ever get explored properly. As for the Promptos and Ignis DLCs, these should have been part of the main story. I mean, a lot of people were really confused, like how the fuck Ignis is suddenly, blind now. And it's explained through this DLC that happens on Alticia, and that was really action-packed and really fun to play, actually. And it also tells you the fate of one of the Imperial generals, which were also people that were put into both Prompto and Ignis episodes as exclusives. So you were really confused the first time you played, like, where did these generals disappear? Where are these people? And their fates are only told on these DLCs. So from a game design perspective, these should have been part of the game. The Gladio story makes sense as a DLC because it's not really that crucial to the main story. It's a nice side mission, so to speak. But it's not taking inherently something away from the story, like the episode Ignis did, where they told why did he got blind. And on Prompto's thing, you get to learn a lot more about who created Prompto and, well, the Prompto's, origins. And those are explored on his episode, and also a bit of Aranea's. And those were also excluded from the main game, and this should have not been the case. I was very heavily criticizing the fact that in the original game, they were not including all of these, parts from the anime miniseries or from the movie, because those were crucial to the story. And this is not everybody's gonna watch the movie, watch the anime, and read every detail to get the story. And even if you did all that, it is still a shit show a story. It was still a very confusing story. And yes, they did add these cutscenes about Ravus and Luna Freya inside these later chapters in the game, but they didn't help the story. I'm sorry, but they didn't really help the story, and it didn't. No matter how much patching you're gonna do to the game, like quality of life changes, it's not gonna change the fact that the story is bad. And I understand that there are people who like the game. I like the game too, but I'm never gonna argue that the story was good. I mean, it was quite bad. Out of all the Final Fantasies that have been 3D so far, it's the worst. It's definitely the worst. It's not really on the level of Final Fantasy writing. There were a lot of bad game design choices on, level design, which were kind of boring at times and, very lazy. And everything kind of looked the same. You had certain trees that were in every area, okay? Every different, like, geographical area, which didn't make any sense to me. And it just wasn't really able to create that immersion like other games did. And a lot of the things about the world and lore didn't make sense. That the way that when the gods appeared, the summons appeared on the game, they were treated in such a casual manner, like, oh, that's a god. Okay. There's no surprise or awe in this situation. There's no, a way of overwhelming from the characters. They just kind of already, accept the fact that, yeah, we're the destined ones, gods exist, okay. Like, it's a very tame response from, oh, the characters really in the game, and it really lacks that awe and surprise element. Obviously, there are other stuff also which I forgot to mention, which were added. So also you can play as Gladio, Prompto, and Ignis. You can, like, from the Ascension tree, you can, take one, and I believe you can use them only for a certain period of time during the battle. But this is obviously a nice thing and something that people were really wishing for, to play as the other characters, not just Noctis. And I mean, overall, the Windows Edition is the better version. But even if the graphics are good, you have done these quality of life, improvements on the game design, on the FPS, the bugs, and even added some story cutscenes to better flesh out Lunafreya and Ravus, or, through the DLCs or the other companions. It doesn't really fix the fundamental issue of the game, which is the story is really bad. And you can do many patches you want, many backgrounds DLCs as you want. It's not gonna change that. Eventually, decided to cancel all those other DLCs, which I don't think that would have been interested playing the Arania DLC, a character that I really didn't really care about, to be honest. To me, I felt she was just a random side character, to be honest. Obviously, she could have had like a very interesting background story to her, but overall, I just didn't really care. So I think they made the good call there. I don't really much have else to add here. If you're really playing it for just the gameplay, it is a very, good combat, but the combat itself, it has its abuses. Summons are ridiculously powerful, and a lot of the bosses, late game bosses, they are just, grind fests. They are like essentially tanks. They just take time to kill because they have so much health. And that's just very tedious, that there's not like a real strategical difficulty on these things aside from spamming remedy when you get the status ailment. So that also was a kind of bad design, that the combat had too much loopholes. The combat is fun, but it's abusive at the same time. Like the warp, the warp points, you can abuse them a lot in a lot of the boss fights, and you can run also easily away from the battles. And the real sense of danger, as long as you're stacked up with Phoenix Downs and Mega Phoenixes and potions, you don't have anything to really worry about. I think you're overpowering most of the bosses eventually. But I'm gonna wrap it up here. I still recommend the game because it's a really long. You get a really good return for the hours. As I said, like, even if you like skip every cutscene on the game, playing through the side missions and the DLC and the main story, it's easily over 100 hours. If you're gonna go for the completionist role, obviously don't necessarily want to do everything on the game, but it's just still was enjoyable to play through once again. But I have to admit that the fact that I cry inside, so to speak, of the fact that the game could have been so amazing if the story was better. It's a sense of regret. Obviously, I was not doing the game, but there was a sense of regret that it's such a shame that the story was bad, because otherwise it would have been such a great game. Such a great game. But let's not, chapel on things that we have been already saying a million times here. Stay tuned for more content. I will review a couple of JRPGs that I have on my, backlog, and also I will play the Arden DLC if it's free when it comes out on March, so stay tuned for that review. And obviously a lot of Final Fantasy content is coming on the channel, so I would appreciate you subscribing or staying subscribed. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys next time.